The Clippers choked. Let's call it what it is.
The mistakes that he was making in the waning moments of last night's game cost the Los Angeles Clippers.
Clippers are championship or bust.
They looked exhausted yesterday. They looked fatigued. They looked like they didn't come to really play.
The Clippers were the next team up. Like, they were the next team up out of the West to take things over.
Blake Griffin hasn't been around when it counts most. Kawhi Leonard, that might be the biggest choke job we've ever seen in NBA history. I mean, it was that bad. It was that bad.
You mean to tell me they're about to go into luxury tax? They gave up their future to go one extra round? To go one extra round, that's what it did. They can't even get to the Western Conference Finals.
Nope. A superstar talent, we know it, but the problem with him is his availability.
The Clipper curse, when I first got here was number one picks getting hurt, not working out, them not making the playoffs, them not having winning seasons. No one talked about getting past the second round. Not a single soul talked about that. But now, that's what everybody talks about. So,
if you've been watching the NBA throughout the past few years, you know that the Los Angeles Clippers have been failing, and it's kind of unfortunate to see. This team is either very unlucky or straight up cursed. Whether they're choking big leads or the stars can't stay healthy, this franchise can't catch a break, and it especially hurts when your own city rival is constantly achieving the success you could only pray for. A team that has all the talent in the world to win championships, the only thing they can show for it is one conference finals appearance. Today we'll be going through the past 12 years of this franchise that has done nothing but disappoint fans at the end of the season. The Clippers' 2006 season ended in the Western Conference semifinals, going 7 games against Steve Nash and Shawn Marion in the Phoenix Suns. Despite losing the series, the Clippers had a pretty successful season by their standards, finishing with a 47-35 record. It was just their second winning season in the past 30 years of the franchise, and what looked to be a step in the right direction only turned around and became the complete opposite. For the next 3 seasons, the Clippers failed to make the playoffs, and at the end of the 2009 season, they had the 3rd worst record in the league. Luckily, they won the draft lottery and got the number 1 pick in the 2009 NBA draft. And in that draft that featured James Harden, Steph Curry, and DeMar DeRozan, the Clippers selected the consensus number 1 college player of the year, Blake Griffin. But before fans could see their prized possession rookie play in the regular season, things went wrong. In the team's last preseason game against the Hornets, Griffin came into the game listed as questionable to play. The team initially said it was just knee soreness, and Griffin was cleared to play. And in that game,
defense. How could anyone live up to that? Telfer! Oh, wow! A monster jam by Griffin!
He broke his kneecap. The fracture was just supposed to keep him sidelined for 6 weeks, but his recovery wasn't progressing properly. And after being sidelined for 4 months, Griffin and the team decided to shut him down and have season-ending surgery on his knee. In Blake's official rookie year, he became a star, averaging 22.5 points per game, along with 12.1 rebounds. He won the slam dunk contest while earning his first All-Star appearance, and became just the 3rd unanimous Rookie of the Year winner in league history. Despite how well he was playing, the team didn't improve as much, finishing as the 13th seed in the Western Conference with a 32-50 record. Before the 2012 season started, there was a lockout, so the regular season didn't begin until Christmas Day. But weeks before the start, Chris Paul was set to be traded to the Lakers, but that deal was cut off, making way for Paul to join the other Los Angeles team. Along with DeAndre Jordan, who they drafted in 2008, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin became Lob City. Together, the Clippers had their first winning season since 2006, 40 wins, 26 losses, and were the 5th seed in the Western Conference. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies in 7 games in round 1 of the playoffs, and got swept by the 1st seeded Spurs in the 2nd round. But overall, the team had a successful first year together, and were looking to build in the future. The next season, they made more progress, as they won 50-plus games for the first time in franchise history, and as the 4th seed, they had their rematch with the Memphis Grizzlies in round 1 of the playoffs. The Clippers started the series off on a good foot, with a 2-0 lead after the first 2 games, thanks to this game winner by Chris Paul. They dropped games 3 and 4, and the series was tied 2-2 coming into game 5. But one day before that pivotal game, Blake Griffin suffered a high ankle sprain in practice, and despite not being 100%, he gave his best efforts to play in the game. 6 minutes into the second half, the pain was too much. Griffin left the game and did not return. Memphis went on to win Game 5 and take a 3-2 series lead. In Game 6, Griffin tried playing again. Coming off the bench with 14 minutes, he finished with just 9 points, and the Clippers blew their 2-0 lead and lost to the Grizzlies in 6 games. Their first what-if series had Griffin not gotten injured. To start the 2014 season, the Clippers hired Doc Rivers and acquired JJ Redick to the team, and again, made progress in the regular season. Jamal Crawford won 6th Man of the Year, while the team set a new franchise record with 57 wins and entered the playoffs as the 3rd seed. Their first round matchup would be against the Golden State Warriors. Entering Game 4, the Clippers had a 2-1 lead in the series and had to deal with off-court problems, as their owner Donald Sterling was caught on audio saying racist remarks. The team protested his actions by wearing their shirts inside out. Clearly distracted by their off-court mess, they lost Game 4 by 21 points. Before Game 5, Sterling would be banned for the league for life. He'd also be fined and forced to sell the team. Despite their off-court problems, the Clippers did rally together and beat the Warriors in 7 games. Their round 2 matchup was against the Oklahoma City Thunder. The series was tied 2-2 entering Game 5. With a 13-point lead with 4 minutes remaining, the Thunder went on a 9-0 run the next 2 minutes. But the Clippers still, with under a minute 30 remaining, had a 4-point lead. And with 50 seconds remaining, they built their lead back up to 7 points.
Paul with the jumper. Yes! Clutch jump shot by Chris Paul.
On their way to take a 3-2 lead in the series, the Clippers choke. A Durant 3.
Here's Durant for 3. Yes!
Durant layup.
Durant scores!
Chris Paul turnover.
Paul had it knocked away by Westbrook. The steal leads to this. Jackson.
Chris Paul fouled on a 3-point jumper.
To Westbrook for the lead.
And another Chris Paul turnover found the Clippers down 3-2 in the series instead of being up a game. This game mentally broke the Clippers this series, as they lost the next game at home and would be eliminated from the playoffs.
It was just like we were so deflated by that game that we couldn't pick ourselves back up to come home and win one and then force a Game 7.
In 2015, the Clippers again had a good regular season, finishing with a 56-26 record and was 3rd in the Western Conference. Their first matchup in the West was against the defending NBA champions, San Antonio Spurs. This series went the distance to a Game 7 in Los Angeles. 8 minutes into the pivotal game, Chris Paul suffers a hamstring injury, and despite being in pain, he muscles through it, playing 37 minutes in the night. While hobbling around on the floor throughout the night, he hits the game-winning shot over Tim Duncan to win the series.
Clippers by 2.
Paul's injuries, though, would keep him out the first 2 games in the next series against the Houston Rockets. Entering Game 3, with the series tied 1-1, Paul made his return, playing just 23 minutes. But it didn't matter, as the Clippers dominated Games 3 and 4, winning both games by at least 25 points and taking a 3-1 lead in the series. 1 win away from the team's first conference finals appearance, they choked again. The Clips lost Game 5, then blew a 19-point lead in Game 6, letting Corey Brewer and Josh Smith cook them in the 4th quarter while Harden was sitting on the bench. And in Game 7, the Rockets put the team away. The Clippers had failed in the postseason for another year. Entering the 2016 season, the Clippers had a brand new identity. With new logos and uniforms, the Clippers were looking to create a different narrative than the old Clippers teams. Finishing with a 53-29 record, they ended as the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Jamal Crawford again won 6th Man of the Year as the team faced off against the Portland Trail Blazers in the first round of the playoffs. Taking a 2-1 series lead entering Game 4, the Clippers looked to take a commanding 3-1 lead in the series. In the 3rd quarter, this happens.
And there is the play again with Chris Paul.
He looked at it right away, too. I mean, he knew something was wrong.
Chris Paul breaks his hand, and to add insult to injury, 1 quarter later, Blake Griffin aggravates his left quad, an injury that made him miss 41 games throughout the regular season. Both players were out for the rest of the series, and with those 2 being out, the Portland Trail Blazers took care of business, winning Games 4, 5, and 6, winning the series 4-2, as the Clippers' postseason was again disrupted by injuries. In 2017, as always, the Clippers had a good regular season, winning 51 games and securing the 4th seed in the Western Conference. Their first test for their playoff run was against the Utah Jazz, and their run started off on the wrong foot as they lost Game 1 to a buzzer-beating shot by Joe Johnson.
Drives in, puts it up, gets the bounce at the gun, and the Jazz win Game 1.
They came back to win games 2 and 3, but not as a cost. In the second quarter of game 3, Blake Griffin suffered a big right toe injury. He played just 18 minutes in the game and did not return. Griffin missed the rest of the series, and the Clippers lost in 7 games. And just like previous seasons, their postseason run was ruined by injuries. That offseason, Chris Paul was reportedly done with the team and wanted to be traded. If he wasn't traded, he'd leave in free agency the following season. So the Clippers, wanting to get compensation for Paul's departure, traded him to the Houston Rockets for 7 players, 2 of them being Patrick Beverley and Lou Williams, $661,000 and a first-round draft pick. Paul had a strong desire to play with James Harden, and he got his wish. The trade was a huge blow to the Clippers as they started the season 25-24 in late January. That's when they made another huge move, a surprise one out of nowhere. They traded Blake Griffin to the Detroit Pistons. Griffin signed a 5-year extension in the offseason and expressed that he wanted his legacy to be a Clipper. Only to fast forward months later, Griffin was traded and he found out just like everyone else.
The only thing I just wish I had known or had the opportunity to talk to somebody beforehand. Finding out through Twitter or through other people is a tough way to find out when you've been with a franchise for so long.
It's safe to assume that he wasn't a fan of this decision, as he refused to acknowledge Clippers owner Steve Ballmer 2 years later after the trade. Griffin has since denied that he was ignoring him. The Clippers finished with a 42-40 record and was 10th in the Western Conference, as they missed the playoffs for the first time in 6 years. Lou Williams, though, did win 6th Man of the Year. In that offseason, DeAndre Jordan signed with the Dallas Mavericks in free agency. The Lob City era was officially over in Los Angeles. 2019 was a weird year for the Clippers. Despite losing their 3 faces of the franchise, they competed the entire year, led by Tobias Harris in scoring, along with Lou Williams, who won back-to-back 6th Man of the Year, and their rookie, gilgeous-alexander. The Clippers finished with a 48-34 record and secured the 8th seed in the postseason. Their first matchup, the back-to-back defending champions, Golden State Warriors. You know, the team with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant? The Warriors won Game 1 by 17 points, and in Game 2 in the third quarter, they were up by 31 points, and they blew it. The Clippers completed the biggest comeback in NBA playoff history as they evened up the series 1-1 going into Game 3. They proceeded to lose Games 3 and 4 at home before winning Game 5 on the road. And before the pivotal Game 6, Kevin Durant said these famous words.
Patrick Beverley, I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
He proceeded to drop a playoff career high 50 points to lead the Warriors into the second round of the playoffs. The Clippers exceeded expectations as they were eliminated in the first round. After winning his second championship and Finals MVP, Kawhi Leonard was heavily rumored to join LeBron James on the Los Angeles Lakers. But that's when news broke on July 6 at 2 a.m. that he would be leaving the Toronto Raptors and signing with the Los Angeles Clippers. On top of the Kawhi signing, the Clippers were also trading Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and 5 first-round draft picks for Paul George. 2 top 10 MVP candidates were added to a playoff roster within the same night, and the Clippers went from being irrelevant competitors to top 3 favorites to win next year's championship. And during the season, the Clippers played well. Before the NBA had to suspend the season, the Clippers were second in the Western Conference, and at 44-20, they had the 4th best record in the league. After the 8 seeding games in the bubble, the Clippers finished the year as the 2nd seed in the Western Conference, as Montrezl Harrell won 6th Man of the Year, and they faced off against the Dallas Mavericks in round 1. Despite the 31 points per game by Luka Doncic, the Clippers won the series in 6 games, and in round 2, they beat the Nuggets by 23 points in Game 1. They went on to win 2 of the next 3 games and take a 3-1 lead in the series. They were 1 win away from the franchise's first ever conference finals appearance. And in Game 5, they proceeded to blow a 15-point second half lead and lose the game. In Game 6, they blew a 19-point second half lead and lost the game. And in Game 7, they choked, blowing a 3-1 lead in the series and were eliminated in the second round of the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George combined for 24 points on 10 of 38 shooting from the field.
Way off, it's the side of the backboard.
These guys became the laughingstock of the NBA.
And what were you guys saying to each other when you saw the Clippers blow that 3-1 lead?
You were laughing.
They were a bunch of fraudulent front runners all year.
Paul George went from being known as Playoff P to Pandemic P. They went from clowning Damian Lillard for missing 2 late free throws to being flamed on Twitter. Years later, Clippers players say they weren't motivated to win the bubble and didn't even want to go in the first place.
And then the bubble thing came up and we fought it. I keep it real. We fought it. We did not want to go to that.
While Paul George has opened up about the depression he was facing in the bubble. Regardless, the Clippers, who were favored by many to win the championship, not only failed to win, but failed to reach the conference finals that year. After the team's collapse in the postseason, head coach Doc Rivers stepped down from the team despite having 2 years left on his contract. The team replaced him with Tyronn Lue a month later. The Clippers brought back the same core of the roster from the bubble, only this time, people didn't believe in the team as much as they did. They finished the year 4th in the Western Conference with a 47-25 record, and their first round matchup was a rematch of last year's first round against the Dallas Mavericks. And to everyone's surprise, the Clippers found themselves in a 2-0 deficit in the series after dropping both games at home. They did rally back to even up the series before dropping Game 5 and going down 3-2 into Game 6. Kawhi Leonard stepped up big time, scoring 45 points in Game 6 and had a near triple-double in Game 7 to move on to the second round. Their second round matchup was against the Utah Jazz, and similarly, it started just as round 1. As they went down 0-2 in the series, they came back to win Game 3 and had the opportunity to tie the series going into Game 5, and they did just that, winning Game 4. It was all smooth sailing until Kawhi Leonard started having issues with his knee in the fourth quarter. After the game, he said he was fine.
We saw you collide with Joe Ingles there. You seemed like you were in a little bit of pain. You sat not long after that. Any concerns with that right leg? What happened there?
No, I'll be good.
But he was not. Kawhi went on to miss the rest of the playoffs with a partially torn ACL. The injury curse that had bugged the Clippers since 2013 had appeared once again. Even without Kawhi, the Clippers went on to beat the Jazz in 6 games, which included a 25-point comeback to win the series in Game 6, and they finally made their first conference finals appearance in the franchise's history. Their opponents? Chris Paul, the franchise's leader for 6 years, and the Phoenix Suns. And just like the first 2 rounds, the Clippers found themselves down 0-2 in the series because of missed clutch time free throws and a game-winning alley-oop.
Crowder looking, throws it alley-oop. Oh!
The Clippers went on to win Game 3, and the Suns won Game 4 to take a 3-1 lead in the series. In a crucial Game 5, Paul George scores his playoff career high 41 points to force a Game 6. But in that Game 6, Chris Paul, who gave a difficult 6 years to this very team, broke their hearts in the same building that they played in, scoring 41 points on 16-24 shooting to propel the Phoenix Suns to the NBA Finals and eliminating the Clippers from the playoffs. Despite how well Paul George and the entire team played in the postseason, fans could only imagine how far the team could have gone had Kawhi Leonard been there to play. In 2022, the Clippers played the entire season without Kawhi Leonard, who was still dealing with his ACL injury. And to add salt to the wounds, Paul George ended the season missing 43 games with an elbow injury. The team ended with a 42-40 record and secured the 8th seed in the Western Conference. To clinch a playoff spot, the team had to get through the play-in tournament, and the first matchup was against the young Minnesota Timberwolves. Paul George gave this game his all, finishing with 43 points. But Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell combined for 59 points as the Timberwolves clinched the 8th seed in the playoffs. Patrick Beverley got his revenge on the Clippers for trading him in the offseason. Luckily, because they were the 8th seed, they had one more opportunity to grab a playoff spot. But hours before their game against the Pelicans,
Paul George has been placed in the health and safety protocols and will miss tonight's game.
You can't make this up. Already without Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers entered a do-or-die game without their 2 best players, and they lost by 4. A season filled with hope was interrupted by injuries and dwindled down to disappointment. 2023 went a lot like the 2022 season for the team, a season full of injuries and surprises. Kawhi made his return after missing the entire season last year, and at the trade deadline, the team signed Russell Westbrook. But that didn't change from their 2 key players missing games. For the 4th straight year, both Kawhi and PG played less than 60 games in the regular season. The team finished with a 44-38 record, and as the 5th seed in the Western Conference, their first round matchup was against the Phoenix Suns, who had recently just added Kevin Durant to the roster. But just like last season, the Clippers entered the series down a player. Paul George, who was dealing with a sprained right knee, did not play the entire series. Kawhi Leonard was also dealing with the same injury, but he decided to play through it. And to everyone's surprise, the Clippers won Game 1 thanks to Kawhi Leonard's 38 points and Russell Westbrook, who did everything right except score the ball.
Russell Westbrook. Wow.
In Game 2, Westbrook and Kawhi combined for 59 points, but it wasn't enough to get the win, as the Suns evened up the series. The Clippers did their job by stealing the game on the road. Now all they had to do was protect home court, and they could find themselves upsetting the Suns.
Brian, we have some breaking news here on NBA Today. According to our own Young Masuk, bringing Chiney Ogwumike into this conversation, Kawhi Leonard has been ruled out tonight. That is according to Om Young Masuk with a right knee sprain.
Just when things couldn't get worse for this franchise, it got worse. Kawhi Leonard, who just had back-to-back 30-point games, was ruled out for Game 3 hours before the game. The Clippers, again playing without their two best players, lost Game 3 as the Suns won a close one. Leonard would also be ruled out for Games 4 and 5, and the Suns finished the job, moving on to the next round as the Clippers were eliminated from the postseason. After the series, the Clippers revealed that Leonard had a torn meniscus in his right knee, and just like clockwork, the Clippers' postseason was again ruined by injuries. To start the 2024 season, the Clippers retained Russell Westbrook on a bargain contract and started the season 3-1. With their roster fully healthy, in the 4 games they played, they had the best defensive rating in the league and led the league in steals, all in this small sample size. Then, on October 31st,
months after requesting a trade out of Philadelphia, our Adrian Wojnarowski, he reported that James Harden is headed to the Los Angeles Clippers in a blockbuster trade.
The Clippers traded 4 players, multiple draft picks for James Harden and PJ Tucker. Harden joined his 4th team in 4 years, while the Clippers officially headed in to the super team route. After the Harden trade, the Clippers took a nosedive in the standings, losing their next 6 games. Harden's arrival was looking like a bad idea. Then, a complete 180 took place. The team kept winning and winning and winning. The James Harden trade started to look genius. On top of that, both Kawhi and Paul George played well over 60 games in the regular season for their first time with the team. Maybe it's because the league started to crack down on load management, or maybe these two players are finally healthy enough to play. The team won 50-plus games for the first time since 2017 with a 51-31 record and was 4th in the Western Conference. Everything was going right until...
So Kawhi Leonard, right, has not played since March 31st because of inflammation in his knee. Woj, what are the chances that we see him on the floor tomorrow?
And Malika, all indications right now are that Kawhi Leonard will be out for Game 1.
Kawhi Leonard was ruled out for Game 1 against the Dallas Mavericks in the first round of the playoffs. What was a successful and healthy regular season turned into the same Clipper story in the playoffs: injuries. Despite Leonard's absence, the Clippers did go on to win Game 1 by a large margin, thanks to Paul George and James Harden. Kawhi made his return in Games 2 and 3 as the Clippers lost both games, going down 2-1 in the series. For Game 4, Kawhi was ruled out again, but it didn't matter as the Clippers went up as much as 31 points in Game 4. Then it all came crumbling down.
Step back 3, tie game!
Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic went on a roll, and the Clippers blew their lead in the 4th quarter. Luckily, James Harden and Paul George did step up and hit huge buckets as the Clippers rallied back for the win. The Clippers evened up the series entering Game 5. In Game 5, the Mavericks dominated.
Goes behind the back, he goes in the power. He scores! Tucker's right on him. 3, Irving, goal!
Giving the Clippers their worst loss in their playoff franchise history, as Luka Doncic had more points than Paul George, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook combined, and more of the same happened in Game 6.
Mavericks, Irving, dancing, prancing, pulls up, 3-pointer, bang! And a foul!
As the Clippers were eliminated in the first round for the 2nd year in a row. Another season ended, wondering how different the series could have been if their team was healthy. 13 seasons, 5 different All-Stars, 11 playoff runs, and 1 conference finals appearance. It's been a rough life for the Clippers. With the team rebranding and playing in a new arena next year, the team is faced with even more decisions to make, as both James Harden and Paul George will be free agents in the offseason. Is it time for the Clippers to move in a different direction than the original 2 pairings? Or will next season be more of the same from the past 13 years?